now the uncertainty is created into certainty and trust. Now the other partner is sitting there going, okay, we can actually work on this.
Yeah.
Versus what happened just created, it took an uncertain situation, it poured gasoline on the uncertainty, and now she's not sure she can ever trust him again.
That's the ironic part, because I energetically knew that something was up. And 2 weeks into our relationship, or the timeline, like when you know something's up, typically someone's going to ask in the relationship. Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast, where we talk all things relationships. This is episode number 95, how to share uncertainties with your partner. So the first thing to understand here is that we all have uncertainties that we have to admit to ourselves and then share with our partners if we want to stay together and work as a team. As always, before we jump into this episode, thank you so much to Next Level Podcast Solutions for all that you do for producing this show and 55 others. I think it actually might be more than that now, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to check in on my numbers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it. As always, sweetheart, what is your intention for today's episode?
My intention is the episode title, helping our listeners overcome these uncertainties that, if left unaddressed, drive couples apart.
Okay, so the very first thing here is, and I said this actually prior to recording this, I said, we struggle when we're uncertain to admit that to ourselves. And how is someone supposed to share something with us if they haven't first admitted it to themselves? So the story that I have for this is, it was early in Emilia and I's relationship. I think this was like 2 or 3 weeks in. And we were at your place at the time. We were in your bedroom. And we were in bed. And she sensed an energy shift in me. She could kind of tell something was off. And naturally she asked, like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is everything okay? And I was fearful for sure, but I couldn't admit that. So I said, oh, yeah, no. I'm just tired. Because, men don't ever show uncertainty. So deep down, though, I knew, like right after that, I knew. I was like, you idiot. Inside myself, I was like, you're doing it again. You're doing the thing that you said you wouldn't do, which is lying to yourself and lying to her. And I told Emilia at the beginning of our relationship I would never, ever lie to her about anything. And so I'm like, shoot, I totally just lied. I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. I'm not even a little bit tired. As a matter of fact, I don't think I could go to bed if I tried. Right? And so then I sat there with myself and I had this moment. We were snugging. And I was like, okay, what is really going on? And the truth deep down is I'm fearful because I'm falling so deeply in love, and I'm insecure because I don't want to be hurt. I'm so scared to get hurt. But obviously men don't share that.
Definitely not.
Men aren't afraid of anything.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I took the higher road. I'm grateful that I did. Because if I hadn't, it would have created a wedge. What we call a wedge in a relationship is growing apart, drifting apart. Mm-hmm. And I said, sweetheart, I am not tired. And the truth is I'm fearful and I'm uncertain and I'm insecure because I'm falling so deeply in love with you beyond what I ever have with anyone. And I'm scared that I'm going to get hurt. Mm. And after that, she went vulnerable too. And she shared that she's also falling in love with me. You can see why I was scared, because what if she wasn't? Which obviously, she was, which was great. And then we got connected again. Instead of energetically and emotionally disconnected, we were now energetically and emotionally connected. And I'm pretty sure probably physically connected after that too, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so I think that our listeners can really relate to situations where, I had a bad day at work or I'm tired, when in reality, yeah, maybe in the moment you didn't have time to unpack it, or maybe you didn't really know what was going on inside of you. In this case, I really did know, and I was lying to myself and to you, and I corrected that very, very quickly, and I have been doing that for 4 years now, which I think has helped us stay super, super connected emotionally and energetically. And I think that unconsciously, believe it or not, Emilia can trust me now a lot more than she could, because I call out myself in situations like that of, listen, I'm not tired. I'm not even a little bit tired. I'm fearful, and I want to be vulnerable with you, and I want to take the risk, and, maybe you'll see me as less than, but hopefully not.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't actually go vulnerable with their partners because they have an unconscious fear that if they go vulnerable, like you had in there, you'll get hurt, right? And so that really ends up being the crux.
And there's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because my fear of getting hurt actually is making me behave in a way that is going to make me actually get hurt. Because had I not shared that with you, you probably would have fallen out of love with me, and I would have ended up getting hurt.
That's the ironic part, because I energetically knew that something was up. And 2 weeks into our relationship, or the timeline, like when you know something's up, typically someone's going to ask in the relationship.
Yeah, and when I don't tell you the truth and you intuitively know it, is that going to increase the uncertainty or decrease it?
Right.
It's going to increase uncertainty, and when uncertainty is increased, then insecurity increases and problems increase, and this happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we've learned, not only in our own experience, but also what's emerged through a lot of the research that you and I have seen and observing with clients, is that a lot of times there's an intuitive knowing that one of the persons in the relationship typically holds. And I don't want to give a ton of credit, but I also don't want to not give credit, where a lot of women have an intuitive sense towards what is going on, and is that vulnerability going to be expressed? And when it isn't, it actually pulls away from the connection that could be at hand. And women end up tending not trusting their partner, because of the fact that the partner doesn't want to go inwardly. Yeah. And that's really scary territory.
So in that moment, had I stayed with, I'm just tired, your intuition said, ooh, he lied to himself and to me in that moment. Yeah. And maybe it's not the right time. Maybe he'll tell me tomorrow. But if I never did, and we never readdressed that, you're not going to be able to trust me.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things, where unconsciously what's connected to this is taking accountability and responsibility for how you're feeling inside. And a lot of people don't do this. I'll give a perfect example. I was on a call with a client recently, and she was practically in tears throughout not only the entire story that she shared with me, but the entire session that we were there, and talking about what she had gone through with her partner. So she shared a story with me that she was out during a birthday party with her and her friends, and she had brought her partner. And they have a 9-month son together, and they're out partying. All of a sudden, before you know it, drinks are sliding. They're having a bunch of fun. And before you know it, there ends up being this fight. That is the scary thing that's going to happen. And all of a sudden, before you know it, people are saying that this person's going to start fighting with you, and another partner of another person. Doesn't really matter in terms of the details, but this partner that I was coaching, she was so afraid that her partner was going to get into a fight, because there was way too much drinking involved, and there was no responsibility, obviously, that could have been taken at that time. So she was practically carting her partner around, making sure that he wasn't getting into a fight with another man at that time. And before you know it, that night is over. She saved him from the fight, him not getting into a fight. And the next day they're talking about the night and how it went. And her partner was literally telling her, that's not how it happened. No, I wasn't about to get in a fight.
Even though that partner was wasted.
So in that time period after the whole experience, where my client was not only helping her partner avoid a big fight and perhaps even jail at the time, like just what could have honestly turned out to be a really bad experience for them. She's sitting there being told by her partner that that's not what happened, right? So gaslighting her own experience when she's the one that took care of him the whole night, which allowed them to be where they are now. And here's the thing that happened through this, the story that we all know and a lot of us have experienced, where she's not only uncertain about, that whole moment of whether or not she can trust him in that moment, whether he can take accountability and responsibility for what had happened. He was so embarrassed about what had happened internally. He didn't check in with himself and admit vulnerably all of that to her. But not only that, she's now...
Which I did with the fear thing. The original story, I realized and owned what was real. And in this case, this partner didn't.
Yes, this partner didn't at all. Not only that, but tried to build a story of the complete opposite. So here my client is in tears because not only is she so uncertain about just whether or not she can go out with friends and have a good time where her partner is not so destructive because of how irresponsible that moment was and the decision making underneath that. But also now when it comes to taking care of their 9-month-old together, she actually feels like a single parent where she has to take care of both of them now. So I know there's a lot of people out there that have probably experienced where they're in a relationship and they have to not only try to take care of the relationship and have the we grow, but in addition to if they have kids, they have to take care of the partner because the partner, kind of to circle this full circle, isn't taking accountability, isn't checking in within themselves of what is their truth and how is that truth kind of coming out into their behaviors, how truthful they are with their partner, and thus the certainty that they can actually hold on to and build from in their relationship.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to jump on here and talk about the Conscious Couple podcast that I've been listening to for a while now, and I absolutely love whether you're single in a relationship or not. This is the podcast for you. I mean, think about it. If you're not in a relationship, look at it like building a house. If you were going to build a house, wouldn't you get the instructions, figure it out, look it over, start practicing some of the little things so that once you start doing it, it's going to be the best house that you ever built? Or if you're in the house already and there's issues that are going on with it, aren't you going to try and fix them? Or think about it while you're building the house and the base layer, there's some issues there. Don't you want to correct those and fix them before you work on the rest of it? Have a great day, guys. Awesome podcast.
So if he was listening, we could tell him how to share uncertainties with his partner and say, listen, number one is identify what the truth is. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're ashamed of the night before and how drunk you got, but you got to face that with yourself, within yourself of, listen, I screwed up. Yeah. That's on me. And I take responsibility for the fact that I drank too much. Mm. Then the second layer of that is now you not only have to admit that to yourself, but now you have to bring that up to your partner and say, listen, I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I'm going to work on it. Now, the uncertainty is created into certainty and trust. Mm. Now the other partner is sitting there going, okay, we can actually work on this. Yeah. Versus what happened just created, it took an uncertain situation, it poured gasoline on the uncertainty, and now she's not sure she can ever trust him again. Yeah. And I know that that's relatable to a lot of our listeners. And if you're in a relationship where your partner cannot vulnerably share uncertainties, and more importantly, you can't share uncertainty that you're uncertain. And so I'll make that tangible too. If Emilia is uncertain about something and she feels like she isn't going to be supported or I'm going to get too wasted or whatever, and this is not the case because I don't even drink, but if that was the case, does she feel like she can bring that up? Mm-hmm. So these uncertainties perpetuate and compound over time when no one's bringing up what they're uncertain about. Mm-hmm. He's too uncertain to admit the truth to himself and her. She's too uncertain to confront him about that. Right. So nothing gets addressed. Mm-hmm. And now they're both uncertain for potentially their entire relationship. Okay. And so as much as that sounds like gloom and doom and quite awful, something is going to snap. Yeah. And if not, it's going to be a pretty miserable relationship along the way. Definitely. Because they're growing apart internally, even if they're not growing apart environmentally. Truth. Is there anything else that you want to add, sweetheart?
I would say, just to kind of round this episode out into a couple of, I would say probably 3 steps for our listeners. So number one, really highlighting the fact that to create less uncertainty in your relationship, or in other words, to create more certainty within your relationship, or bring that up and gain more certainty with your partner. Number one is you need to go inside and check in. What is your truth? Mm-hmm. And this is taking accountability and responsibility of your truth and bringing that into the relationship. I feel like if you don't do that, number 2 and number 3 are not going to go as well as they could.
And in this example, think back to me saying, I'm just tired. and then going inward and saying, I'm not tired at all.
Yeah.
I'm fearful and I'm insecure, and me going inward and wondering, why do I feel the way I do?
Yeah.
What am I uncertain about? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
what's step 2?
Number 2 is accepting that there might be an alternative reality, because I feel like we fear once we're going to bring this truth to our partner, we fear as though the worst is going to happen, right? They might take advantage of us. They might see us as weak. They might see us as whatever our narrative is. This is where the thought challenging comes in.
In this case, it would be me fearful that Emilia will see me as
less than
weak. Or weak, or
not as attractive.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the step number 2 is, what if that's not the case though? What if she didn't? What if she actually saw you as more than, because you had the courage to actually go inwardly and find your truth? And then that's the biggest, scariest part, bring it over.
That's step 3.
Yeah.
So step 3 is actually share it.
Yeah.
And that requires courage, and that requires vulnerability.
Huge.
CVC is what we call that. Courageous, vulnerable communication. CVC will change your life.
Yeah.
And so again, the 3 steps are: number 1, go inward and figure out what your truth actually is and admit it to yourself.
Take that responsibility of doing so.
Yeah. And then number 2, so in this case, me saying I'm not tired, and you're not tired, you're actually insecure and fearful that you're going to get hurt because you're falling in love.
Yeah.
Okay, that's step 1. Step 2 is, what if she doesn't see this as weak?
Yeah, but what if? What if she doesn't?
What if? And then step 3 is, okay, here we go. We're gonna flip this switch and see how it goes. Yeah, sweetheart. So I'm not tired. I'm falling deeply in love with you beyond what I've ever experienced, and it's freaking me out.
Yeah.
And that you can start there, and then there's a dialogue.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if you have a partner who is not toxic, it will go really positively. I mean, if you're vulnerable and your partner reacts negatively, that is a tell.
Yeah.
That is a tell.
Definitely.
If it's authentic vulnerability. If it's fake vulnerability, they're going to call you out, and it's going to be like, listen, I don't know. And I've had a client one time who had fake vulnerability with me, and it triggered the hell out of me, because I was like, oh, you're hoodwinking. You're pretending. And I don't like pretending.
We should get into an episode around what is and
the difference between real vulnerability and fake vulnerability.
Yeah.
That I'm going to have to take some notes on first, because I just got good at that very recently.
Well, I think for all of our listeners, I think those 3 steps are rather quite tangible, and I think that they're applicable in no matter what the situation is. And for this client that I spoke about high level on this podcast episode, one of the takeaways for her was to actually go have a CVC dialogue with her partner.
Nice.
And so I'm super excited to check in with her and really see how the nonviolent communication is what we actually called it, but CVC, courageous, vulnerable communication, is exactly that.
Yep.
Where you're actually expressing fears and expressing where you're uncertain, and how you can actually be a team together to try to move past the certainty and gain more certainty. So excited to check in with them. And also, there's so many times where we've had people really bring up an uncertainty, even in our coaching with couples. And all the glory is on the other side of vulnerable communication, courageous, vulnerable communication. So for our listeners, we hope that this episode inspired you to maybe have a courageous, vulnerable communication with yourself first, and then bring that to your partner or whomever it is.
And if you don't feel safe to do that with your partner yet, that's what Relationship Talks coaching is actually for.
Yeah.
So I can't even tell you how many times we've been doing Relationship Talks coaching pretty much at least once a week, if not more, for the last 3 years now. Yep. 2.5 years. And a lot of times, and I actually have a client who's a one-on-one client who we also coach in Relationship Talks coaching, and sometimes he'll wait to bring the thing up while we're there to mediate.
Yeah.
So we've mediated for couples before, couples that were divorced, couples that were married, couples that weren't even married, just engaged. But at the end of the day, what a mediator does is it's a medium. Instead of talking directly to your partner and them feeling attacked, you can talk to us, and it creates a really nice triangulation happening there. And so if you're too fearful to do this, and you're scared to confront your partner or bring vulnerability to your partner, you can talk to us solo, or you can bring your partner into Relationship Talks coaching. Just make sure they don't feel attacked about that. So you might want to do one-on-one first. We do a free half an hour every single week, RTC, Relationship Talks coaching, and we'd be happy to help. the link to book on our calendars should be in the show notes.
It will be. And what will also be in the show notes, I'm super excited for this one, is going to be our next free relationship talks event where you can get around other couples, other conscious singles who are trying to have a better relationship, are always trying to grow together, not apart. And this one I'm super, super excited for. We're going to round out the year with something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when it comes to the holiday season. So go ahead and click to register for that. You're not going to want to miss it. It is December 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is going to be our 30th event. So we're taking...
So this is next week or the week after?
I believe it's the week after when this episode comes out.
Okay. So this episode is coming out tomorrow.
Yep. So it's going to be the week after that.
Okay.
Exactly. So this is going to be our 30th event. So we're taking all of the lessons that we've learned over 30 events and we're packing it into this one event, honoring relationship boundaries during the holidays, something that we all struggle with if we're in a relationship. This is so hard even on your own. So
I'm stressed out just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So with that, we hope to see you there. You're going to get some great tangible tools that you can walk away with and actually apply that day and thereafter. So join us in that. We would love to see you and have you join us. You don't even have to turn your mic or camera on. Just be there.
Some of our listeners, I think they attach to certain quotes, and this is one that I think will be valuable. I used to not like the holidays, but I realized holidays without boundaries are awful.
Yeah.
Holidays with boundaries can be really great.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's something that we will talk about at the event. We appreciate you. My alarm is going off. We have to boogie. Thank you so much for being with us on this journey. We hope you, whether you're single or in a relationship, are flourishing. If you're in a relationship, we hope your relationship is flourishing. And thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it. As always, it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.